So good evening, everyone. Again, wonderful to see you all. Thank you for joining. Again, I would like to start with the motivations. And then talk about the topics of discussion for this weekend. Okay. Keep yourself comfortable. And feel the weight of your body on cushion or chair. And as you inhale and exhale, naturally, normally, keep your mind observing it mindfully. Thereby keeping your attention with the breath. Once your mind has settled down, then we can try to reflect and contemplate that as long as our mind is not free from self-centeredness and self-grasping ignorance, negative emotions such as attachments, anger, jealousy, pride, so forth will arise, will manifest in our mind. And whenever one of those negative emotions arises, it disturbs our peaceful mind. In that moment, there's no calmness, peacefulness. Instead, our mind gets restless, agitated, disturbed. And as long as our mind is agitated and disturbed in such a way, no matter what happens in our life situations, we will feel unhappy. Even when things are going well, still our mind feel dissatisfied, unhappy, disturbed. And that miserable mind does not go away by changing the place. By changing the job, by changing the partner, by changing the food, whatever we could change, but still we could be very unhappy, miserable, because one of those negative emotions have manifested, arises in our mind. Therefore, changing the external conditions does not change our experience, inner experience of being miserable, unhappy. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, you are still carrying that disturbed mind. That's making you unhappy, miserable. On the other hand, if we do not have, or if we have less of self-centeredness, self-centeredness, self-grasping, ignorance, there's less arising and manifesting those negative emotions, less disturbed in our mind, less agitations, less unhappiness, less miserable. And if we don't have arising of any of those delusions, negative emotions, then, no matter what the external conditions are, good or bad, you can still keep your mind calm, peaceful, joyful. Not only when you are in good health, even when you have not so great health. Not only when you have good relationship, even when you don't have the best relationship. Not only when you are doing financially well, even when you are doing not so great. Even in such situations, you can still find peaceful calmness and joyfulness. Therefore, whether we and our life become miserable or joyful, it mainly depends on our state of mind more than the external conditions. That being the case, if we want to have more peace, more joyful, more happy life, we need to pay more attention to our mind than the external conditions. We need to work with our mind more than external conditions. In order to reduce and eliminate those disturbing negative emotions, which are the source of our miserable unhappiness, pain. We need to contemplate, meditate, practice, correctly, continuously. To do that, we need to be reminded of those practices, meditations, all the time. Therefore, I'm going to listen to the talk. Not only listen, but whatever we learn, we take in with us in our everyday life and try to apply as much as possible. And may all of us coming here together, giving our precious time, energy, resources to listen, to engage in discussion, reflecting, contemplating. May all of this become cause and conditions to obtain fully awakened state. So we can be a greatest help, benefit to oneself and to all sentient beings. Okay, we'll go to the refuge and bodhicitta, continue from the previous one. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Supreme Sanctity. May the merit I create through this new Dharma, may I become a Buddha and the benefits of it. Sangye Chodam Soge Chonam La Chanchu Padu Dani Jatsushi Dagi Chöse Gipe Sonam Te Yola Pense Sangye Yobasho Sangye Chodam Soge Chonam La Chanchu Padu Dani Jatsushi Dagi Chöse Gipe Sonam Te Yola Pense Sangye Yobasho. So, as you all are aware, the topic of the discussions during this weekend will be Diamond Cutter Sutra. On that, in these sutras, Diamond Cutter Sutras, is one of the most well-known and recited and studied in all the Mahayana traditions. It's very common in Tibetan traditions in all lineage. This was actually one of the first sutra I was introduced when I was very young. In our village, people invite the monks to their home to recite the sutra so that they can create merit. So when I was still young, studying in Kopan Monastery, one of my distant relatives, requested me to come and recite that sutra. So that was one of the early sutra that I was introduced. And so in Tibet, this sutra is known as, the sutra that closed the door to lower realms. Commonly kind of known as the sutra that closed the door to the lower realms. And you will find as we go through the sutra, in sutra itself, the Buddha mentions, when you recite, memorize, write it down, share to others, contemplate, study, contemplate. When you do that, then by the power of doing that, your negative karma will be purified as a sign of being purified, in this very lifetime, you will experience one of obstacles. One of the obstacles in this very lifetime, but it's a good sign. It's not a bad sign. It's a sign of being purified. It's a sign that now you have purified of negative karma, otherwise that will have led you to lower rebirth. And by being experiencing some obstacle here, that karma has been completely purified, and therefore it closes the door to the lower rebirth. So that is well, kind of, within the Tibetans, is normal, the sutra of closing the door to lower realms, known as that. So that is powerful reciting, writing yourself or sponsoring to write and print, memorizing, studying, contemplating is a very powerful way to purify. And also is a very powerful way to accumulate merit, And as I mentioned before, when we do the talk, the merit is necessary for our spiritual progress. It is the positive energy or positive potential that supports the practice, the conducive condition that support the practice, and it is a very powerful way to accumulate. And again, as if you read the sutras, it is mentioned again and again so many times as the benefit of reciting, memorizing, studying, contemplating, how much merit you create is something unimaginable. Beyond our Buddha in Sutra, he said, if I have to mention every benefit, your mind will be crazy. Your mind will go crazy because we wouldn't be able to conceive it. We might feel, how can that be possible? Our mind cannot imagine. Our mind doesn't have capacity to do that. So he said he's only going to explain only some benefit of it. He is not going to explain every benefit of it because our mind doesn't have capacity to digest that and understand that, And so again, as you go through that, you can see that, and so that is extremely powerful also for not only for purification and accumulation merit, and both of them clearly mentioned in the sutra itself. And again, when you recite such sutras, where they explain about the wisdom realizing emptiness directly, where that has the capacity to destroy all the delusions and the very root of the delusion completely. Of course, it has the potential to destroy the negative karma that is created, but on the basis of those delusions, it has the power not only to cut and destroy the delusion, even the very root of all the delusions. And when he had this power to destroy that, then of course negative karma is much, not as powerful as those delusions itself. And so therefore, that is how it is so powerful to. And then, also this wisdom realizing emptiness, which is the main subjects of this sutra is also the main cause for all the enlightened beings to achieve enlightenment. As it is said in Heart Sutra, as it also here, all the Buddhas of three times manifest or achieve their enlightenment by relying on this wisdom. Wisdom relies on the emptiness. And so therefore, since that wisdom is the most, powerful way to achieve that fully awakened state, that you need so much merit, and this sutras explains how to cultivate that wisdom and that wisdom path. And so therefore, is again why it is so powerful to accumulate incredible merit, unimaginable, beyond our grasp, or our mind grasp. So, and from the title is called Diamond Cutter Sutra or Vajra Cutter Sutras. It is mentioned that diamond is, among the precious gems, is the most valuable, most strongest. It can destroy other gems, and people use the diamond to cut the other gems, stones and other things. It's so powerful. Where others cannot destroy it, destroy that one. In the same way, the main subjects of this sutra, the main topic of this sutra is the wisdom realizing emptiness and the emptiness itself. And that wisdom realizing emptiness is the one that can cut all the delusions. The delusion cannot overcome it. The delusion cannot harm that wisdom. Delusions are unable to harm or hurt that wisdom, but instead the wisdom can destroy and completely cut all of them. Therefore, it's like that diamond, inner diamond. Inner diamond that cuts all the delusions from the very root of it. So from the title itself, we know what subject it is and how powerful that is and why we need to develop that. And I will do the oral transmissions tomorrow mornings. And again, because this is sutra that all the FMD centers recite time to time as a group, individually. Probably there are people who also recite. And also it is one of the advice our guru, late precious Lama Zopa Rinpoche advice to recite, especially during the holy, special holy times or dates, and of course every day if we can, and so, and since this is something that we recite, if we have the oral transmissions, then it's more beneficial. Rinpoche once explains that one of his own teacher, Geshe Sherab Rinpoche, explains that if you have the oral transmissions, it becomes like equal by reciting 100 times when you recite one time. You know, one of that. Secondly, it is, the orally passed unbroken lineage from the Buddha himself until now. Many of sutras do not have unbroken lineage anymore. There's no more oral transmissions. Some sutras had the oral transmission, had direct oral transmission have been lost. So some of those sutras we cannot receive. But there are many other sutras still where the oral transmission is still alive. And Diamond Cutter Sutra is one of those sutras where the oral transmission is still unbroken and continues, and therefore, if we have that, the practice becomes more powerful, more effective. However we do, whether we recite it, whether we study it, whether we try to contemplate, meditate on that, meaning of that, there are different ways of using this sutra in our practice, and whichever way you use it for recitations, for writing it, for sharing it, for reflecting, contemplating on it, But if you have the oral transmission, it is the blessing is passed. The direct blessing that has been passed orally, directly, and that you cannot have that from the books or YouTube's, it has to come directly, unbroken that way. So and also, Lama Zopa Rinpoche mentioned as quoting from Geshe Rinpoche, that when you are oral transmission, when you achieve the second path, the path of preparations, then when you have this dharani or concentration or non-forgetting, at that time, then it said all this oral transmission that you have received will be, remembered, and that. So there are many reasons and benefit why oral transmissions, to have oral transmissions, and that's why, including His Holiness Dalai Lama, who is the most enlightened beings, at least in our lineage, in our times, even he pays so much attention to the oral transmissions. He have received many of those from different teachers. Not necessarily the other teachers are more enlightened than him. Not necessarily the other teacher have something to teach him that he doesn't know. But they have the oral transmission, he doesn't have the oral transmission. And because he wants to receive the oral transmissions, then he rely on the teachers. In some cases, even ordinary monks, where even some other lamas do not have that oral transmission, and only one ordinary monks have that oral transmission. And His Holiness feel that if he doesn't receive it and pass to others, nobody will receive from that monk, and that lineage will be no more there. The oral transmission will be lost. And because of that, then, there are instances where he have taken those oral transmission from some even ordinary monks who have those lineage, the oral transmission. So that is, if someone like His Holiness the Lama, most enlightened at our time, and who is very much, use his reasoning and logic, doesn't just accept because someone says or because this says, with that mind, he also feel the importance of that. He understand the importance of that. Sometimes I think that is one factor. I think sometimes we don't pay attention. We feel like if I can study from the books or wherever, those oral transmissions are not so important. Because it's not only about knowledge, it's about realizations. If we don't have oral transmission, we still by reading the books, and we can study from many other sources, and you can have the knowledge about that. But to turn that knowledge into experiential understanding, what we call spiritual realizations, then those knowledge are not enough. You need more than that. And the blessings of such as the direct passing of unbroken lineage of the blessings play some role in that. So anyway, and I myself, received from Lama Zopa Rinpoche a few times, and I think maybe I can share the stories. I don't think it's not bad, I guess, or wrong. In 2004, after 2.5 years in the US, I asked Rinpoche, that I would like to do long retreat and to give the permissions. And Rinpoche give permissions. And then, Rinpoche gave me many advice and many practice to do, And among many practices that he gave me to do, one of them was to recite Diamond Cutter Sutra, 10,000s. So that among many, many other practices, that was one of them. Then, as I mentioned, even though I have exposed when I was young, but I haven't recited or read it for quite a long time. And so then, I recited and checked it how much it took me, to complete. At that time, it took me 45 minutes. Then I started to calculate, how long it will take me, Then it seems like even I recite 5 hours each day, that it will take me 3 years. Just reciting 5 days every day, And so, and when one time when Rinpoche was in Sera, I happened to be there, I think for his own Dalai Lama's teaching, I guess. And so I sent questions or requests to Rinpoche through one of his attendants at that time, Jimba. Now Geshe Jimba. If you could ask Rinpoche, that Rinpoche gave me, among many practice, one of those practice was those 10,000, and it seems it will take me 3 years just to do that. And so, can I sponsor? Can I do a little bit myself, and can I sponsor the monks and nuns to recite for me? With that, you can know what practitioner I am. So, bargaining. We learn in India and Nepal bargaining everything. You have to bargain everywhere with a taxi. You have to bargain every shop. So I guess I was bargaining also in the practice. And then the answer, came was no, you have to do yourself. Rinpoche, Jimba explained me. Rinpoche was clapping and laughing, and then so there was no discount. Then Rinpoche advised, no, that you should do yourself, but you don't have to think it as that you need to do that before you do the actual retreat as a preliminary, Rinpoche said, you can think of your lifetimes, within the lifetime you can do it. It's not like something you have to do now before you start the retreat before that. So that put me a little bit took away a little bit of burden, because I felt like, because that was Rinpoche giving me as preliminary. So I felt like I have to finish all this preliminary before I go to all the actual retreat. And that means, with not including others, it seems like 2-3 years just doing that. And so then once I got that advice, then I requested Rinpoche if he could give me the oral transmissions, because if I'm going to recite so many times, it would be beneficial to have oral transmissions. And Rinpoche, accepted very delightfully. Rinpoche was happy. And then, Rinpoche gave that the first time, and then I also received other times. And then once after that, then I started doing that, and I completed in 4 or 5 years, and I found it was also sometimes I felt it was also one of Rinpoche's very skillful way of engaging you into practice, because I have all of that, whenever I was traveling and when the plane get delayed, I feel excited. Oh, I can finish 1, 2, 3, instead of feeling upset or, that feel like that you have this opportunity or time. It was very helpful in that way, there's something. And then also when I was in Kopan, running the school, the educations. Sometimes when we have break, sometimes we have time, normally, you chit chat with your friends and that, when you have break. But when I have that, I feel like I need to go and recite instead of chit chatting. So again, it was helpful from not wasting your time. It helped me in that way. And since then, like after I finished the 10,000 as Rinpoche advice, I continue to do every day, took commitments, and I enjoy doing that. At the very beginning, I did it, not necessarily I enjoy doing it, because Rinpoche advised me to do it, you know. But with the time, I don't know, the blessing or something, I started really enjoying reciting that. I really started enjoying that very much. And because of that, I just, it became like my commitments. Of course, I don't have any commitment to do that, but I do every day, no matter how busy, no matter where I am. So I've been able to do that, and feel good about it. So I think again, I think maybe there's some blessings, that inspire uh, me to continue to do it and enjoy doing that. And as I was mentioning before, so there is a little bit kind of about the kind of the lineage and how it came about, uh, how I how I received it. And as I was also mentioning before, that how this sutra is one of the most, uh, I think, between the Heart Sutra and Diamond Cutter Sutra, the most two well-known sutras and practice in all the Mahayana traditions. When I was visiting some of the monasteries in Japan and Korea, I saw not only in the monastery, also outside the monastery, the lay practitioners, reciting those with a fish, wooden fish, knocking, and they have very nice way of chanting.
Yeah, we have the wooden.
Oh, there, yeah, I see that, yeah. So with that, they are very, very nice way of chanting. When you listen to it, it's inspires you. It's something, some feelings arises. So I've seen them chanting that everywhere, and if you see, there are so many translations of Diamond Cutter Sutra in, Korea, um, Japan, Chinese, so many different translations by different translators, masters. So it is one of the most, uh, yeah, well-known practice sutra that has been continued to practice very strongly in all those Mahayanas, uh, within all the Mahayana lineage and the countries. The main, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the the topic of the sutra is the path to enlightenment. As the sutra, the Subhuti asks to the Buddhas, someone who is interested in the Bodhisattva's path, how should they practice? How should they enter the Bodhisattva path? And once you enter the path, how should you engage in the practice? And based on that, and that is the way the main theme or the main practice, then Buddha explained about that, and explaining about, in order to enter the Bodhisattva path and engage, that one must cultivate the Bodhicitta mind, the wish to liberate each and every sentient being without excluding anyone, by including each and every sentient beings, the wish to liberate them from the suffering and cause of suffering, and wish to lead them to a fully enlightened state, and for that, to the wish to achieve that fully awakened state yourself. to cultivate that bodhicitta mind. And that is cultivating that bodhicitta mind is the way to enter the bodhisattva path. Then to become bodhisattva. And in order to develop the bodhicitta mind, and then one need to develop the great compassions first. Without great compassions, there's no way to develop the bodhicitta realizations. I think at certain time in Tibet, because again, Buddhism came in Tibet around 7-8 centuries, and then it declined and become a little polluted. And then Adisha, around 10-11 century came and revived to its purities, And at that time, there were certain, people, practitioners who think the bodhicitta is that you, at the beginning of motivation, you try to feel like we try to do, generate the bodhicitta mind a little bit at the very beginning in the motivation, and they think that is the bodhicitta. If you have that, then you develop bodhicitta mind. And Adisha mentions, you Tibetans know how to develop bodhicitta without great compassions. There's no way for us in our traditions, in our lineage, to develop bodhicitta realization without the great compassions, So he was being a little bit sarcastic in a way, that mentioning of that. Basically, what he's saying, there's no bodhicitta realization without the great compassions. To develop the bodhicitta, you need to have great compassions. On the basis of great compassion, then one develop bodhicitta mind, and at the very beginning, that kind of the wish driven by the great compassion, the wish to achieve that fully awakened state arises when you meditate, when you put effort. But when you don't meditate, when you don't put effort, it does not arise. But as one continue to practice, meditate more and more, then with the familiarity and with the training, it becomes more and more easier. It requires less and less effort. And it arises more often. And slowly one is able to arise that feelings, the wish to achieve that fully awakened state in order to liberate all sentient beings from the suffering cause, arises effortlessly, naturally, day and night. When that happens, and that is what we call the realization of bodhicitta, that is when you have this effortless, spontaneous, naturally, day and night of that feelings, that bodhicitta, the aspiration, the wish to achieve fully awakened state, the Buddhahood, in order to benefit all sentient beings, then that is what we call realization. And when you have that realization, then you become bodhisattva. Then you become true bodhisattva. Regardless of your gender, regardless of your whatever others, but you, whoever that being become bodhisattva, true bodhisattvas. And from that moment, you enter the first path of the bodhisattva, the path of accumulations. Then you enter the first path. So in the sutras, Buddha explained to enter the bodhisattva path, then you need to develop this bodhicitta mind. But while you develop bodhicitta mind, you shouldn't be grasping to you that who want to achieve that fully enlightened state in order to liberate all sentient beings. Nor you should be grasping to the sentient beings that you are going to be liberated. Nor you should be grasping to the enlightenment that you want to achieve in order to liberate all sentient beings. You should train in not having grasping while you generate that Bodhicitta mind, the wish to liberate all sentient beings. In order to liberate all sentient beings, the wish to achieve fully enlightened state, at the same time, training not to be any grasping to the self, grasping to the sentient beings that are going to benefit and to be liberated, to be benefited, nor to the enlightenment. If we have grasping to them, then attachment arises. Attachment arises. With attachments, expectations arises. Fear arises. And suspicious arises. And then that give arise to also dislike, aversions, anger. When you're attached to something, and when you feel someone might be obstacles, has been obstacle, could be obstacle, might be obstacle, then you started to have dislike, aversions, and anger towards that. And thereby your practice does not become completed. Your practice become uncompleted. That lack the wisdom. Your practice is completed when the method, the compassion, the bodhicitta, and wisdom come together. Just as the bird need the two wings to fly, we need the two wings of compassion and wisdom in order to fly to the shore of fully enlightened state, to achieve that fully enlightened state. And therefore, and so how can we not have, and when you have that grasping and attachment and expectation, then that can become an obstacle in our practice and path. When you have so much attachment to the outcome, the result, the more stronger attachment, the more stronger expectation you have about the outcome, about the result. The more stronger, attachments you have, the more stronger expectations. The more stronger expectations, more likely to have more disappointment, discouragement. A lot of time, practitioners become very discouraged after some time. Why? Because they have too much expectation from the practice. They have too much expectation to have a big result, quick outcome, big outcome. And when that doesn't happen, then they become disappointed and discouraged, become obstacles in their path. And that kind of expectations and comes because we are so attached to that. Less attachments means less expectations. Less expectation, less disappointment. Less disappointment, less discourage. In terms of result, in terms of same thing, in terms of path, getting attached to the path itself, So when you have no grasping to the path itself, the result itself, then there is less expectations. Less expectations, then there's less disappointment, and doesn't become obstacles. Otherwise, it can become obstacles in your path. It become obstacle for a lot of practitioners because they become, disappointed, discouraged, and the illusions, and then they completely give up practice. They completely give up their practice, their path, or their practice is not strong anymore as it used to be, because there's no strong inspiration and confidence, and so therefore that's here not to have grasping. How can we let go of grasping? By understanding the selflessness of yourself, the emptiness of the self, by seeing the emptiness of the sentient beings, which are the object to be liberated, object to be benefited, and as well as emptiness of the result, the enlightenment that need to be achieved, So by understanding the emptiness of all of them, then you don't have any grasping to all of them. And we don't have grasping, then, attachments, anger do not arise on the basis of that grasping, the ignorance, the grasping. And so that is in the sutta, that is what Buddha explained, start how to, those who are interested in the Bodhisattva path, they should first try to develop that Bodhisattva mind without that kind of grasping. And then he explained, once you have entered the path, how to engage in the Bodhisattva path, how one should engage in the Bodhisattva path once you have entered the path through the practice of 6 perfections or 10 perfections. Of course, in the Sutra, Buddha explicitly touched on the first perfections, but it referred to all the 10 perfections. Normally 6 perfections, and when we relate with the 10 bhumis, then the 10 perfections, or paramitas, 6 paramita, 10 paramita, that are the paramita of generosity, paramita of moral discipline, the paramita of patience, the paramita of joyous effort in virtues, the paramita of meditate concentration, wisdom. Those are the 6. And in terms of 10, then, in the paramita of method, the paramita of power, the paramita of prayer, the paramita of exalted wisdom. So then when we add those 4, then it becomes 10 paramita. And especially when you talk about the 10 bhumis, each of those bhumi has, even though they practice all 10 paramita, each of them have more specific focus on one paramita. And so that is how also is related to those 10 parameters in that. So again, while we engage in that path, the path of 6 parameter, 10 parameter, once you have entered the both of the path, then you try to engage and practice in those 10 parameters. While you try to practice, such as the 6 parameter, 10 parameter, again, you try to practice those practices, those parameters, without grasping. When you practice generosity, not grasping to yourself who is practicing generosity, not grasping to the objects of the generosity, whatever object, whether it's external material objects or non-material objects, such as Dharma practice or others, not being grasping, not grasping the self who is practicing the generosity, not grasping the object itself, and not grasping to whom you are giving, practicing the generosity. Again, same things. If you have grasping, then again attachment arises. With the attachments, again expectations arises. With the expectations, again, disappointment and not only disappointment, sometimes that can lead to resentment and anger as well. And sometimes we find you practice generosity, but you are attached to certain outcome from your practice of generosity. There come the expectations. You want certain outcome from your contributions, from your generosity. And when that outcome is not there, something else, or not being able to actualize, then you get disappointment. Not only disappointment, sometimes you get resentment, angry. I shouldn't have contributed. My contribution has been wasted. You feel bad about your practice of generosity, which something good, that you did something good. Now you regret it. You feel bad about it instead of feeling good about it. And not only that, then you get upset with the people to whom, who are kind of in charge of that project or whatever. Upset and angry. Resentment, all this arises. Why? Because there were certain expectations for our contributions, for our generosity. And that expectation was not met. And that kind of expectation comes because of, again, attached to certain outcome. And that comes because of the grasping. So again, and also, so therefore, again, when you practice such as generosity, any other paramita, in the sutra, it explains you should practice without any grasping. And the way to practice without any grasping is by understanding, reflecting the emptiness of the self, emptiness of the object of generosity, the emptiness of the emptiness to whom you are giving, the emptiness of outcome, the result, So when we are able to practice without grasping, by understanding the emptiness, then also your practice become complete, both method and wisdom complete. Otherwise, it becomes incomplete. Again, it becomes complete practice, and it becomes much more powerful. The practice becomes much more powerful, much more effective. Then it is not complete. So and then through the engagement, by engaging the practice of 10 paramita, then want to achieve the result of two kayas, two bodies, the Buddhas, Rupakaya, Dharmakaya, and Rupakaya. The two kayas or the two bodies, the form body and wisdom body. That is, by engaging in those 10 parameters, then want to achieve that fully awakened state by achieving that two kayas, But even when you achieve two kayas, again, here it says, you shouldn't get attached. You shouldn't have any grasping to the two kayas, even the result. The Rupakaya with the major or minor signs, and Dharmakaya. The wisdom Dharmakaya, one shouldn't have any grasping to that. If you have grasping, again, the practice is incomplete. Again, you have all these others, little emotion arising. Again, more attachments, more expectation, disappointment, all of that. So therefore, even for that, then again, you should learn to achieve it without any clinging, grasping. And one engage in that practice by understanding the emptiness of the form body, by understanding the emptiness of the wisdom Dharmakaya as well, by understanding the emptiness of both body or kayas. Through that, then that you achieve enlightenment, the result. So that is the main theme of the sutra. Main theme of the sutras. And sometimes it might feel like it's repeating again and again, but again, it is explaining the progress from first path to second path, third path, fourth path, and just like in Heart Sutras, it seems like it's repeating again and again, but again, with these different stages, is explaining how we progress by engaging in a profound wisdom path, how we progress from one path to the next path. And when you progress from one path to the next path, the practice are very similar. It's just that your wisdom get more stronger and stronger, and you accumulate more and more merit. Your wisdom get more stronger, more sharp, more profound, and through that, and with that more powerful, more sharp, more profound wisdom, then you are able to destroy from subtle to gross to subtle to more subtle level of those athletic emotions. And through that, from dualistic to less dualistic to non-dualistic, in that way, that is how we make progress, from one path to another. So, but the basic practice is very similar. It's not like each path you have different meditation on emptiness. It's the same. And so therefore, even though we seem like that, it's repeating, but it's repeating because it's explaining, how from one path to next path, how it improve. When you progress and improve, then you continue to practice in that way. Very similar in that way. So, yeah. So I think that is the more theme. And then at the end, with a different example like a star, karma, like this karma, mirage, and so forth. Then it kind of summarize. It kind of summarize the essence of those teachings, this sutra. The emptiness, the profound path of the wisdom realizing the emptiness. So I think that is a little bit kind of introductions to the sutra and the content of the sutra, the topic of sutra. So if there's question, I can take one or two questions, if there is any questions.
I've actually got a question right at the very beginning when you mentioned about obstacles, and I must admit I kind of got a little worried about that for a moment, like, oh, what obstacles do I have to look forward to? But say when you're at the airport and there's a delay and then you see it as beneficial to be able to recite. So does that mean that the obstacle of the delay is no longer an obstacle? Or is it both an obstacle? Is it a good thing and a bad thing? Or how do you look at it?
Well, the delay didn't get because I started reciting. So it wasn't the obstacles manifesting as a part of that. I mean, it could be from maybe my recitation this morning or that morning or evening. It's hard to know whether that particular, for us, it's hard to know specifically, very particular, what I'm experiencing is a result of which karma, you know. Is a result of this, that karma is unless you achieve certain high realizations. That is why they said a specific karma, which we can predict. This karma will manifest at this time, in this life, in this way, to be able to predict that, or to be able to see this karma as a result of that particular karma in that lifetime. That is something that, unless you have high realizations, even sometimes the arhat, they have some limitation in seeing how far they can see that. They can see for certain distance, but sometimes they cannot see the most far, like the Buddha himself, because they still have some obscurations. And so therefore for us, it will be very difficult to see, to know for sure, but whatever obstacle happens, we try to think it is a good sign. It's a sign of purifications. Instead of seeing it's a bad sign. Instead of seeing it's seeing as a manifestation of negative karma, which seems to have negative bad, you see is a manifestation of purifications, which connotes something positive. And we look forward for that, something good. And so regardless whether that was exactly actually of being purified of that or not, even we are not sure, but to be able to see that can be helpful, just like any other lojong practice,
We have a question from Inke, who's
Yes,
online, and she asks, how do we know the difference between grasping and aspiration?
Aspirations is not so uptight. Grasping has much more uptight, very, you can have inspiration, but with very relaxed, nothing so uptight about that. But when it's a grasping, there's sense of uptightness in that, in that is one different, factors. With the graspings, then it can lead to other negative emotions, disturbing. It will give rise to other negative emotions. With aspirations, it doesn't give arise to negative emotions, but instead it gives rise to other positive emotions, positive feelings. That aspirations can lead you to something more positive state of mind, not a negative state of mind. So those are some, yeah. And also when you think about specific grasping like ignorance, then there is sense of, in that grasping mind, there's sense of belief that there is something, the object is something very solid, inherent, Whereas inspiration doesn't have that sense, doesn't need to have that, doesn't have that, that believing, that mind, the inspiration mind, believing that object is inherent, solid existence, So those are some differences.
practicing signlessness, wishlessness,
Uh-huh.
and emptiness is and non-activity is the path to liberation.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, this, when you talk about signless, wishless, and emptiness, we are talking about actually emptiness, emptiness of the nature of the objects, the cause and the result. The wishless is about the emptiness of the result. Signless is about the emptiness of the cause. So by seeing the object itself, nature of the object itself, as well as the cause of that object as a result of those objects, or emptiness is the way to liberations. Yeah. And also when you say non-activities, again, we have to refer same things, non-truly existing activities, or non-mental activities of the superstitious mind, yeah. Sometimes we call mitopa, without conception, without thought, thoughtless, but which means there's no activities in your mind. And when you say there's no activity in your mind, or thoughtless, or without conception, we are not saying totally non-concept, but that is talking about this thought of that grasping, Okay.
Thank you so much, Geshe-la.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Good night. Thank you.